Hi, this is Darren Long from Delta Harbour Assets and the Hard Money Show. In this week's show, we're going to discuss why crisis begets crisis. Gold, silver updates, and the world political stage is set with Ukraine and Russia. How does it impact gold? How does it impact silver? What are the outcomes? And what are the expected price levels for both gold and silver going forward? We're going to talk about this and much, much more on the Hard Money Show with Delta Harbour Assets.
There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey, welcome everybody once again to Hard Money. It is Scholes and Darren Long, always hosting the show, the man with the knowledge, reaching out. Simple. Here's how you do that anytime, 1-877-323-GOLD, 1-877-323-GOLD. Just dial that and go to deltaharbor.com, Harbor with the U. This investment, always about you. Hard assets in your portfolio, always about you. So go to deltaharbor.com, also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. That's youtube.com/Delta Harbor. They have, of course, their own channel with archive shows. You can always learn lots. A lot of them are evergreen, meaning they're good for all time. So begin educating yourself outside the hour of this show. But this week, it's going to be just, I don't know, there's so much going on, man. Let's just dive into it. How are you doing this week, pal? What's going on?
Well, listen, we come to you from the busiest office that we've ever had, and that's a good thing. And we didn't think it could get any busier than it's been the last few months, but swamped. We are definitely thinking of hiring. And so if you are listening and you would like to be part of the Delta team, by all means, we are looking for people that want to be part of our acquisition team, that have knowledge of the markets, that may want a different direction. We'd love to take a look at some resumes if people are interested in connecting with us. It's that busy, John, and we're happy to be here. Gold and silver had a tremendous week, and we focused on a number of different situations this week. Seems to be primarily the geopolitical hotspots of the world, including Ukraine and Russia being the foremost of what we've been dealing with. It's caused this incredible week for gold and silver. Gold at one point this week was challenging 2,000 an ounce.
Yeah.
Up to 1970, and then of course central banks came in and said, whoa, slow down, and hammered that down about $100 yesterday an ounce. And lo and behold, we tape on this Friday, and this is the moment where, if you've already seen what's going to happen and you already know what's behind the curtain and you know that you can benefit from it, this should be a buyer's delight right now. Same thing with silver, hit 25.03, 25.04, and then bounced down a full dollar. And this is certainly what is about to come, what's about to happen. And we've seen where we're heading price-wise. And it looks as though, on the heels of this unfortunate situation in Ukraine and Russia, that this is likely to be the week ahead for us anyways. And we're delighted to welcome a lot of people aboard, but this may just be pushing the button of a few people who've been sitting on the fence, John. So we're happy to have them, and we're here to answer questions as best we can.
Yeah, I saw various news outlets this past week. To your point, gold hitting near all-time highs. It's going up there. It's at saying they called it a hedge. They called it a safe haven, like you always said. They actually said that on the news, and I thought that's what Darren's been talking about for months and months. So here you go. It's come to fruition. Let's take it back old school. Talk a little bit about. So we're going to get into geopolitics and the U.S. dollar, inflation, and all that stuff, and the war and everything that's going on. But for those who are new to this world of hard assets, physical metals as part of their portfolio, which by this time hopefully they're giving you guys a call and getting on it. But some fundamentals of silver and gold, pal. What say you?
Well, to keep it simple, John, there are four underlying fundamentals in the gold and silver market that have been at play to some extent throughout this entire 18-year period that I've been in the market. Now, in looking at history also gives us a good guideline, and to some extent, these four fundamentals have also been at play in other bull markets during the 70s and prior to the 70s, and those are really simple. This is what the reserve currency does or doesn't do in this case right now in this day and age, the US dollar, and currency depreciation, inflation, which is the second fundamental, and how it's impacting overall buying habits and investing habits of consumers. Geopolitics, which is an easy one to understand, whole countries, central banks around the world owning gold because it is a safe haven asset. It is something that to bulk up their trustworthiness on the world stage. And then last but certainly not least is supply and demand. So those four fundamentals are at play at all times to some extent, but like this has always been since day one, gold and silver ultimately are markets which are event triggered markets. And this week is a perfect example on the news, the outbreak of war between Russia and Ukraine. The price of gold literally that evening shot up dramatically, and that's the world paying attention, right? Because look, only 2% of all globally managed assets have exposure to gold. So that's central banks around the world, that's different regions, whether it's the region with conflict and so on and so forth. That's the world perking up and realizing, hey, we got to get to the safe haven. It's the right time to do that. And this is certainly why we've seen clients among other reasons, come in here. So those four underlying fundamentals are at play to some extent, and all of them function within the marketplace as it relates to gold and silver.
How is that supply and demand doing? I know you've been talking about for years now that countries like South Asia, whether it's India or China, and hey, how about Russia? I mean, they've been stocking up on physical metals, whereas Canada basically has like a teacup full, but whatever. Do you think that's played part of what's happening now as far as their reserves are concerned? Supply, demand, what they're owning?
It does play a part and it does play a role. Now, when you see at the news at night, when you hear about the gold or silver price, that is what they are quoting is called the paper spot price. So ultimately, that price is generally impacted up and down by what's happening in the futures market, which is predominantly a paper market. And the last time we checked, taking delivery from that market is not easy. So we work in the world of physical, where we're dealing with product that's coming direct from mints and fabricators around the world. We use that spot price of gold and silver in US dollars as what we call our reference price or the base price. And then we buy based on premiums that are applied to different bars and coins, and then ultimately we tack on our little bit of markup and then put it out to the market. And this is a competitive industry, John, so ultimately supply and demand does heavily impact the final price. Now, it may not impact the paper price as much because in dealing with a paper world, all you do is hit a keystroke and you can add lots more paper. And so that never seems to be the case when it comes to supply and demand. And that is an important issue because, as you said, there are lots of places around the world and central banks which have ramped up their demand and added to their hoards of gold in particular, some with silver as well. But nobody really pays attention to that backstory because they don't necessarily buy through the futures market, the paper markets. This is ultimately one of the problems that we've dealt with over the 18 years that I've been in the business. And when it comes down to physical holdings in gold and silver, this is why premiums do skyrocket from time to time and why you see such a difference between the price you pay for a bar or coin versus that price you hear on the news or in the newspaper every night when you look at the gold and silver price. And ultimately, that is a factor that's revolving around what the supply and demand is like. When we come back, we'll tell you what, from our first break, what the supply and demand situation is like at our own mint here, the Royal Canadian Mint, as well as a few other top tier suppliers around the world. And we can talk a little bit about what supply is coming on versus what is being fabricated into real product.
You got to have this knowledge, especially moving forward. If you're going to get into this market through Darren and the guys, make sure you do that. DeltaHarbor.com is how you reach out online, and the phone number as we get into a quick break: 1-877-323-GOLD. We'll continue. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back to Hard Money. Darren Long here. Always deltaharbor.com is how you reach out to the guys. They are looking to expand. If you're interested in this particular change of career, something new, something prosperous, you've never gone down this road, reach out to Darren, deltaharbor.com, or call 1-877-323-GOLD. Inquire, have a chat, and other than that, just have a chat about actually getting into the market and opening up this part of your portfolio, which may be collecting dust, and that is the part of precious metals, physical metals, not paper, the stuff you can actually hold, and you'll need storage for it. You can look at it, you can audit it. It's real physical metal. It's awesome. But get on board with Delta Harbor and at least have a conversation with Darren or a member of his team. Yeah, we left off talking about supply and demand and how it, especially now. Darren, pick it up for us. What do you say?
Well, as it relates to supply and demand, the demand is ramping up. And John, you can imagine over the last 18 years, with only about 2% of globally managed assets having exposure to physical gold or silver, this has been a market which is primarily focused around events that drive the price. And so despite the fact that we've seen gold run from 350 an ounce in my time up to as high as 2,000 plus an ounce, and silver in that same period of time run from the high $3 range to as high as $49 in change. And despite all that happening, the world as a whole has really not increased their overall exposure. It's trickled up a little bit, but only in the last couple of years since the onset of the pandemic have we seen this new mentality, this change in mentality, which is kind of a reversion, if you will, back to what our historical mentality was, which is that our parents, our grandparents, their parents, they had this belief that gold was of value because it had been the cultural norm. And if you held gold, you held it because it was part of wealth. It was part of what was the established norm, until along came, the idea that paper was, the thing to rely on. Now, we've given our confidence to paper and money, in particular fiat currencies, but all of them fail. I mean, sooner or later, the value of the dollar drops, as it does especially during inflationary periods like now. And the central banks themselves just print more money. And so ultimately, when it comes to supply and demand of silver and gold, despite the fact that the overall price, the reference price, the spot price of gold and silver comes from a paper market, the supply and demand scenario is ultimately the most important part of our market. Now, when it comes to regular supply, it's almost like oil. We could get a lot more oil out of the ground, especially from here in Canada. And right now, this is a very sensitive issue with Russia and Ukraine and the problems that we're having, but we have nowhere to refine it. And that's part of the problem. It's the same thing in gold and silver market. We could get more gold out of the ground. We could get more silver out of the ground, but we have nowhere to refine it. And as it relates to the Royal Canadian Mint, as an example here in Canada, they have to ration the amount that they give to each dealer. So there's a limited amount of supply. As demand is ramping up, how long can that be swept under the rug? It can't be. And we're experiencing now in the last, let's say, 24 to 48 months, this awakening of sorts, John. So as it relates to supply and demand, I might have said 3 or 4 years ago that it's just not as important, or that it wasn't the key ingredient in those 4 fundamentals we discussed in the first segment. But now that we see what's happening around the world, the delays on product availability, the amount of time it takes to get product delivered to you, it's ramping up. It's starting to become an issue. And as a result, you're seeing premiums for certain products, an example of which could be the 1 ounce silver maple leaf coin. And in the US, like us, the 1 ounce silver American Eagle, in which you're seeing dealers have to raise premiums because they're buying product that hasn't yet been made, John. So from a supply demand perspective, it's sad to know that the raw product is there, that great companies across Canada, North America, the rest of the world are mining enough product to come out of the ground. But because of this failure and disconnect between what the real story is with the amount of product hitting the ground, physical, actual hold in your hand, tangible product, and what the actual market makers that are running the paper market, i.e. the banks, the JP Morgans, the Banks of America, all the rest of them that collude and have been charged for doing so. So I'm not saying anything that nobody knows. These have been, years and years and decades of fines that have been given to big institutions for collusion on pricing. As long as that pricing stays in that realm, it's going to move when it's well ready. And that relies on demand from our public space. And in the last couple of years, it's getting to the point now where it's boiling, and we're going to see gold probably rise to around the $3,000 or $4,000 range in the next 4 or 5 years, and silver likewise, probably in the $50 to $100 range in the next 3 or 4 years. And this is just because all of this pent up demand is hitting the market at once.
Again, reaching out 1-877-323-GOLD, deltaharbor.com. As far as supply, Dan, I always think about silver because I know it's one of your favorite metals. Is it that everybody's hoarding the supply, or it's becoming, and we talk about this almost every show, or at least every second or third show, that silver's in demand because it's also not only a precious, but also an industrial metal. It's needed, and it's going to be needed more and more and more as we grow as a population worldwide, right? Are both of those a factor in the supply?
It is, absolutely, John. It's a good point. It's probably the most important point for silver as an argument to hold it, because silver's demand is primarily industrial demand. That's where the largest center of demand comes for silver. And ultimately, that demand is only growing. It's experiencing a renaissance of sorts. Before I started in this industry, there were only a handful of major uses for silver, and we could count them on one hand. Basically just investor demand. We had photography. We had a few different industrial applications that were minimal as a catalyst. We used silver in bearings, and just a few things,
supplies,
right? And now 18 years later, John, I don't have enough hands. I need 10 of us to run through the list of things that we're using. And the problem is that that's great, and that's fantastic in terms of the demand part of the equation, but that product's not getting recycled. So there is no hoard left in the world. The last known hoard of silver existed in 2005, which was owned by the U.S. Mint, and they ran out of their hoard and went into the open market around 2005 for their Silver Eagle program. Now, the Royal Canadian Mint has been doing that forever, since the cows have come home. And ultimately, that is the case around the world with mints. They are buying and making product on a demand basis. So they are ramping up as much as they can in fabrication. Our mint is at near 100% fabrication in terms of what they're producing and putting out. And that's why we don't see old product anymore, because ask yourself one simple question, John. In the equation of industrial demand, that includes things we use as consumers every single day: cell phones, TVs, laptops, tablets, cars, our appliances, clothing, medical, it's in bandages, it's used in water purification, solar technology, huge. Every single solar panel has silver in it. And batteries, EV technology, right? Green revolution. It requires so much silver moving forward that as we ramp up our demand for this in green technology and green energy, that we're not going to be able to supply it, which means the price has to inevitably be substantially higher. So owning silver with gold because it's a smart investment decision, and silver because you're banking on that increase in demand, that's a twofold equation which you can bring to your portfolio very easily through a firm like Delta. Get all of this subsequent information. It's not just a buy and walk away transaction. And we'll hold your hand every step of the way. But John, this is tapping in to the reasons why the very astute and those that have already been part of the silver market are in the silver market. And you add gold and what gold means on the world stage, especially right now with this incredible geopolitical moment with Ukraine and Russia, and you have a recipe for success in terms of where they're heading in pricing. So on a week like this is time for new buyers, existing buyers, and those that are thinking about it to really delve in and add an asset like this through our firm, Delta Harbour.
Reach out, get that portfolio, that section of it happening. 1-877-323-GOLD is the number. Online to deltaharbor.com. We'll continue. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back, Hard Money. So good to have you on the show along with us again today, reaching out to Darren and the team. Explore, educate, do your due diligence before making that initial purchase, which you're probably going to make anyway, but you want to have all the education you can. Do so, deltaharbor.com. There's contact there, but I'll give you the fast track to the phone number, 1-877-323-GOLD. Just have a chat, educate yourself more about these physical assets. You're actually going to hold them and have them on your person, in storage, wherever. It's real physical gold and silver. Precious metals, especially now, is where it's at. Darren, do you feel that people in general have a hard time effectively adjudicating their wealth. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Or let me ask you this: do you think we're afraid to make changes to our wealth? We like the same old, same old. We hate change, right?
Well, I think we do hate change. That's one of the problems. Nobody gains wealth without work, John, due diligence, and investing in something that is real or productive, in my opinion, right? We've spent too much time in the short term over the last 3 or 4 years investing in things we have no idea about. I mean, where did crypto get us? Think of the poor folks that invested in cryptocurrencies over the last 5 or 6 months, right?
Yeah.
They've lost their shirts. Crypto as a base of available assets, cryptos have dropped dramatically, some as much as 40%. And this is ongoing, right? Some of them have lost 30-40% just since January 1st. So ultimately, this is not a store of wealth. This is not a replacement for fiat currency. It's not a monetary system. It's none of those things. It's what has been happening in that train of thought that has grown out of this change in mentality, which happened with our dads and their dads when in the late 80s and early 90s, we began to kind of get away from traditional assets like gold and silver, real estate, hard assets, and we pushed in towards this paper assets, the growth of options and derivatives and bets on bets on bets. And we took away this need to do due diligence and to work hard to understand something, to become, almost an expert in particular things that we're investing in. And we relied on other people, and they caused us to take speculative approaches to all of our investing. And that's what we've done. We've lost this idea that there's any moral hazard, and we just go out and buy stuff because Uncle Ed said, hey, here's a good stock, go and buy it. And 2 weeks later, the stock's worth half its value. Well, you've gotten lucky over the last 5-10 years. The next 5 are not going to be so easy. So you have to work at this. And we do hate change, John. We don't like it. We like the shortcut to things. The way more recently, the ways in which inflation is measured are complex. And we don't want to talk about those things, right? We talk about them on this show. And we've brought it to everyone that's come in to speak with us, and we talk about the complexities of inflation and why governments don't want to admit the real truth about inflation. I mean, food inflation, 6.5% in Ontario right now. Yeah. 6.5%, man. Where am I getting that in my wage increase, right? Am I going to my boss and saying, hey, buddy, I've been working for you for 10 years, busting my arse, trying to get your product out to market, and I'm the top of the shop, right? I'm the veteran sales guy, I'm the veteran VP, I'm the veteran whatever. What do you say to a 6% increase in my wage? I was going to look at you and laugh, right? But your cost of living just went up 6%, 7-8%, depending on what street inflation is. But that's the problem. Nobody wants to touch it. Media doesn't talk about it. We don't talk about it openly, and that promotes this lack of due diligence. And we don't want to we don't want to spend the time that it takes to understand it. So we look for the shortcut. What can I buy that's fast to make money within 2 or 3 weeks? And there is no path to that. This is a very short period of time that we've been doing this. But for the rest of us, there's only one accurate way to gain wealth. It's to look at these things with a magnifying glass, to understand them better, to be fully cognizant of situations around us, and to make good decisions based on what we're learning, right? I mean, the ultimate question, if you're investing in all kinds of different things right now, is, are you ahead? Are you way ahead right now? Are you better off than you were 5-6 years ago? Are you broken even? Are you tied up investments that are not going to pan out? That's one of the things that comes to us most frequently, John. People who say, yeah, I'm ready to invest in some gold and silver or own some gold and silver. And they say, but I just got to wait for this investment to close out. Well, this has become the norm now. They're waiting on other people. They're taking risks that they know nothing about. And ultimately, what you should be doing is just asking yourself, do I have more money in my pocket? Can I go out and do more things freely than I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago? It's simple arithmetic. And the answer is no. We know it. So we've got to get back to traditional assets, things like gold and silver, raw land, investing in real estate that we can afford, that are not, 10, 12 multiples our income. And that's the kind of simple thing. And this is why we like gold and silver, because it's simple. It's a hunk of metal at the end of the day. It holds your door open. You got a 1,000-ounce bar of silver. It's good to hold your door open. But at the same time, it serves a purpose, right? It's there in case you need it at the end of the day. And it's worth a whole lot of money, and a whole lot more than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
1-877-323-GOLD. That is the way. DeltaHarbor.com online and YouTube.com/Delta Harbor. You'll catch all these videos, past and present, and the ones in the future as well, as we keep doing these shows for you to educate you. So, open your eyes, return to simple math, and diversify your wealth strategy. Basic idea, right?
Yeah, it's 100%. I always ask myself, is something that I'm looking to purchase valued at a fair price, above fair price? Is it affordable and of value, or is it overpriced and not of value? Gold and silver, due to everything we have discussed today and on previous shows, are examples of extremely undervalued assets that are completely overlooked by the mainstream, as evidenced by the fact that only 2% of all globally managed assets have exposure to them. And these are things that, present tons of opportunity for people, yet very few people know about, just simply because the message doesn't get out there. And if you want, and you think like me, to put your family first, to look at what's coming down the pipe, to look at the uncertainty of the politics that we have in Canada, to look at the uncertainty of the politics we have playing on the world stage right now, and you say to yourself, hey, maybe I just need a little tiny slice of that safe haven, easily accomplished. Own some physical gold and silver, whether you store it with us, whether you take it home, whether you put it in your registered accounts. Those are all options for us. John, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, our bankers, our corporate entities are for the most part not focused on us as individuals. They're out for themselves. And the sooner we realize this, the sooner we get back to that traditional thinking of being our own central bank, of being in control of our own wealth and not relying on somebody else, right? Banks work for their shareholders, not for the consumers or people who walk through their doors. Never used to be that way, but that's what it's morphed into. And the signs of market exuberance, John, are everywhere. And at Delta, we just keep it simple. Our primary focus is customer service. We will always go above and beyond to ensure that we are the best Canadian gold and silver dealers in all of this great country. And we will be here through it all, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if people want to be part of that, they want to have something that relates to success and has, changed so many people's lives, gold and silver is that opportunity. It's there staring you right in the face. Pick up the phone and give us a call, or go to the website.
Thousands of years old and continues to be well worth it. If you haven't explored this, make the call. Talk to Darren and his team. No problem. 1-877-323-GOLD. DeltaHarbor.com. Lots more to cover on the show. We're going to take a short pause, give you a chance to grab that phone, write down the number, and get started in this part of your portfolio, which may be lacking at this point. This is Hard Money. We'll continue. This is Sauga 960. All right, back to Hard Money. Good to have you along on the show again today. Darren's number, the firm number to reach out to Darren, Rob, the rest of the team, real easy, 1-877-323-GOLD. That's it, 1-877-323-GOLD. And online, the website, deltaharbor.com. That's Harbor with a U, A, because we're Canadian, B, because this investment is all about you. Maybe you don't have hard assets in your portfolio. You haven't thought about gold and silver, or you've heard the show. You're still sitting on the edge, not willing to take a leap or dip a toe in. Make that phone call, man. Have a chat, sample a little bit. And when I say a little bit, is there really a minimum order size for gold and silver, Darren, or is it a free for all? No,
it's a free for all. It depends on the account, John. I mean, we welcome everyone, no matter their budget. We have a lot of clients, blue collar, white collar, moms, dads. We have teachers, we have lawyers, we have doctors, dentists, corporate entities. We have businesses that buy for their employees. That's another thing that's very, very much on our radar, which is going out to companies and saying, look, you've got these traditional plans. We've learned nothing over the last couple of decades is that pension plans are starting to die with the amount of demand that we have for retiring people, if retirement is still a thing in the next 20 years, God forbid. But we have gone out and done that and took away all the guesswork, John, so a person can start anywhere they want. They just have to decide on the type of account. If it's a registered account, accounts at Questrade, our partner in registered accounts, start at $1,000. If it's just a purchase for storage or for home, help yourself to our website. Take a look at the product. We certainly do cater to people who want to have an ongoing relationship, people who want to have a referral basis, people who want to have a small knit family or friends or group and that's very common here at Delta. And we strive to support that. So we do have a lot of small group meetings for investors who know one another, friends, family, and so on and so forth. and everybody kind of gets their gauge of what they're doing and ongoing, and there's questions and answer periods. We do all kinds of really creative things that your average dealer with gold and silver would never offer. It's just a handshake and walk away. With most people, with us, it's ongoing. We're here every week. We're here every day. Some people, John, even want to talk every single day. There are a couple of folks that really send us a text, an email, quick chat, a Zoom, whatever the case is. And we cater to everyone, big, short, small, tall. We don't care who it is. We want everyone and think everyone deserves and should own some amount of gold and silver in their wealth strategy, no matter how big or how small they are in terms of their overall wealth.
If you're thinking of thinking beyond just making a small purchase and doing that initial bit of gold and silver, you can buy in bulk. Generally, will it provide tier discounts? You know what I mean? The more you buy, the better it is. Can you do that? You accommodate those people as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying, it's a normal business practice that if you are buying in bulk, we will try to get a more a beneficial price for you in terms of the product you're looking to buy. And we tend to be very flexible. So that means, unlike traditional dealers, there's a lot that will buy stock and then won't be able to change their premiums because they've got all this inventory sitting on hand that they bought at higher prices, and they don't want to sell it with any deal or anything like that. With us, we do both. So we have the flexibility of having on-hand inventory that we have in place that we try to buy and hedge to buy at lower prices so we can give you better pricing. But we also will play suppliers and wholesalers against each other for your benefit. So we will go to the mint, and we will go to other suppliers that supply mint product, and we will see who has the best price based on what we're going to do. In addition to that, if you're bringing in family members or friends, buy in group. You can put 2 or 3 orders together. You're each individually going to have your own account. It'll be online. You'll have your dashboard, all that sort of stuff. But because you bought all together, you can all take benefit of the lower prices. So there are some tiered pricing. They are listed for the most part on our website, but also I want people to know that we offer custom pricing as well. And we're happy to facilitate and cater to anybody that's coming in, no matter the size. And today's a perfect example. Started the morning with an order for just a couple of $100 in just simple 1 ounce silver maple leaf coins. And just before we went on air, we did a connection with a brand new referral contact, and that individual wanted to start at $500,000 and decided by the end of the call, by the time we went through the process and the product dollars, that they were going to start at $750,000. So the sky's the limit. I mean, any size of budget or any range of product types that you want to add into that wealth strategy, we will accommodate that and get it to you. And in addition to that, the best thing about working with Delta is that we'll advise on the expertise that we have. We'll advise on product types. We'll advise on bar versus coin. We'll advise on what other dealers are doing and whether or not their product types are useful to you. And we don't care, because it's full transparency, John. We've built this company based on being good stewards, being good partners in relationships with our clients. So if you bring another dealer's pricing to us, no problem whatsoever. If we have the product, we'll try to beat it. If we don't, we'll be the first to tell you that you should go with them. And if we don't like the dealer, if we know something about them, or if we know something about the product type that we don't like, we'll be the first to say it as well. We certainly aren't shy when it comes to helping and supporting our clients or their referrals and contacts, family, friends, whoever it is that comes to Delta Harbour.
Again, deltaharbor.com, Harbor with you to reach out online. 1-877-323-GOLD is the way you do that. Now we're coming up. Well, you're coming up on close to 20 years, pal. It'll be 2 more years. 2004, you've been in this business. You've done really well. You know it back and forth, a little more gray in the beard, but you're still hanging in there, man. How have things changed, gold and silver, as far as the prices, et cetera, since you started way back in 2004?
Well, it's a good question, John. When I started back in 2004, gold was $380 an ounce. Jeez. Spot price.
Wow.
Silver was around just a little over $4 an ounce, I think, on my first day in the business. And gold is now trading at $1,900 and silver at $24. That's spot prices to spot prices. So gold has risen, I guess, give or take, just a little over 400%. Nice. While silver is up around 330%. So you can do the math for yourself. And if you are listening to this, please think about this. about 90% of those that invest in anything are investing in only three things: stocks and bonds, which is kind of the same thing, real estate, or some type of interest-bearing instrument like a GIC or short-term loan instruments like that. However, less than 2% are buying real physical gold and silver. We reach thousands of readers and potential owners of gold and silver monthly, yet this is minuscule compared to the 70 plus million investors in the US and Canada alone. And my point is always simple, John. It's the same one repeated over and over again. If you are looking for an undiscovered, undervalued asset class, silver and gold fit the bill. Whether you're a small investor, whether you're a large investor, whether you're a first-time owner, or whether you've been in the gold business for 10 years plus, we are here to support that idea of connecting on an individual basis and putting you in the right spot to be successful in the gold and silver market. And being experts about our marketplace just comes with the territory, John, and that's why people want to be with Delta Harbour.
And with that, we'll take one more small break. Got some more questions, some more stuff for you to learn. To reach out in the meantime, if you haven't written the number down, you can 1-877-323-GOLD, and online the website deltaharbor.com. We'll continue. Hard Money, Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. Hard Money is the show. Darren Long is here, deltaharbor.com, and 1-877-323-GOLD. You want to reach out to Darren and his team. It's always just a thing where you pick up a phone, and it could be 3 minutes or 30 minutes. Just have a chat, get educated if you're not familiar with these hard assets and getting them especially into your portfolio. If you're just going to take a little bit of a taste, spend a couple $1,000 to get started. Or if you're like the previous client you mentioned in the last segment, Darren, where it's $750,000, they're going heavy and they know exactly where they want their portfolio to be for sure. But either way, accommodating, it's scalable completely. With Delta Harbour, we discuss a lot of weekly topics, but there's so many reasons to own gold and silver that sometimes have nothing to do with these topics, isn't there?
Well, John, it's a good way to get to the last segment of today's show, because precious metals are, in fact, as we've always talked about, an inflation hedge and a deflation hedge. And those are topics we talk about, almost on a week-to-week basis. Gold and silver also have a history of holding value. They've protected purchasing power. People don't think about it, John, but inflation is the silent killer of wealth. $1 today will not buy the same a year from now. It'll buy less. And that's always the case every single year, because banks, if they need more money, they just simply print it. And of course, it devalues the value of that currency. And that's an ongoing thing. It's certainly in Canada, under Trudeau's watch of 7 years, he's amassed more debt in those 7 years than all of the former prime ministers combined. So when we're looking at it in terms of what the long-term effect is, it's going to have an impact on the value of our Canadian dollar, especially abroad. So expect those things to happen. But because gold and silver are global assets and they are not necessarily impacted by any one particular currency, they are, in fact, great protectors of purchasing power. Meaning, wow, if I look at an ounce of gold and what it bought me in the 1960s, it probably buys me about the same as it did then now in the 2020s. And if people want an example of that, I won't go too far into this, but John, if you look at a gallon of gas was around 40 cents Canadian in 1965 for a whole gallon, right? It's around 3.78 liters to before we converted. And if you fast forward to 2022, what the hell does 4 dimes buy you? We don't even have change in our pocket anymore, let alone ask me what 40 cents buys you nothing, right? That's the value of our money gone through and down to the toilet, right? We can't buy anything. Now we need $4 to buy the same thing. But if I use 1965 dimes, those 4 dimes, they had 80% silver in them. And if I extracted that silver out of those 4 dimes, guess what? It still buys me. It still buys me a gallon of gas in 2022 and then some.
Wow. Cool.
So ultimately, yes, silver's been a very, very good, as has gold, protector of our purchasing power, right? And silver and gold will always protect and have buying power because they'll never go to zero. And anybody who tells you that they could go to zero, I mean, it's just a pie in the sky. 5,000 years of history tells me otherwise, right? Can paper assets go to zero? You're darn right they can. Can a cryptocurrency go to zero? Yep. Can a stock go to zero? Yep. Can a bond go to zero? Yep. Can an institution fail? They do all the time. but gold and silver have been there throughout it all. And to say that they aren't of value, or that they don't pay a dividend, or you can't live in them, or you can't eat it, all of those things have been said of gold and silver. They're relics. I've heard it from everyone. The fact is, they're among the best performing asset categories in the last 18 years that I've been in this market. And nobody knows this. They're tangible possessions, John. Should God forbid something happen tomorrow where, we're in a situation where our country's fighting for its life, gold is private. It's hold in your hand tangible wealth that nobody has to know about. It's the last bastion of truth out there. We ask about financial truth, and I'm amazed that more people don't talk about this. But as we said earlier in the show, these are complex topics to discuss, and the media shies away from it, right? So this whole topic of he said, she said, and fake news in the media, this is huge right now. This has been huge for a few years. And this last few weeks in Canada in particular, with these problems and convoys and freedoms and all that stuff, this brings this to the forefront. But one thing shines through it all, right? I can definitely say that gold and silver represent truth in terms of true value. And they have a finite supply, so they can't go up in price forever. I mean, they can't go down in price because there's only so little of it to go around. So 20 years from now, twice the price, 3 times the price. To me, that's steady as she goes. That's what I want out of an investment. I want to be able to put my head down and on the pillow and sleep comfortably at night, knowing my holdings, my assets, my strategy is making me money while I sleep, and gold and silver fit the bill for that. So I certainly support all the other traditional asset classes. I own stocks, I own real estate, all the different traditional categories of ownership of assets in my wealth strategy. But gold and silver have been among the most important parts of that wealth strategy for some 18 years now. So ultimately, I do think that there are a ton of reasons outside of those traditional reasons that we would like to own gold and silver. And I think everyone should have it. Every single person listening. There's no excuse that if you're financially stable, that if you're making a living, that if you have a wealth strategy in place, whether it's a traditional one or non-traditional one, whether you're an investor in houses, whether you're an investor in real estate, collectibles, anything, you should have gold and silver in your wealth strategy.
1-877-323-GOLD is the number you want to call. Have a chat. deltaharbor.com. That is Harbor with a U. Tell us a little more about the avenues to get this stuff into your portfolio, Darren. I really like the registered accounts. I'm a big fan of TFSAs in all forms. And a lot of people don't realize they can use their TFSA, their RIFs, their RSPs, LIRAs, and actually use that for physical metals through Delta Harbor. A lot of people don't know that.
Well, it is true, John, and it's a tremendous opportunity for people to use these benefits that have been given to us through our government, in the form of the TFSA, which means about 81,500 up to, if you qualify for it, the maximum if you've been able to invest in the TFSA since they came about in 2009. That means that's tax free. Right, you put silver, $81,500 worth of silver or gold or a combination of both into that TFSA, and the price of silver or gold doubles, triples, quadruples. You're not paying any taxes on it. It's free. You can buy and sell it, and at the end of the day, if you want to take it home, you can pull it out of that TFSA. If you already have an RSP and it's doing great, maybe there's a portion of it that's not so great that you could bring over to Delta. Our partners, Questrade, will open up a registered account and will migrate some of that value in your RSP over. Maybe you want the whole thing. Maybe you have a stale pension that's just sitting around doing nothing. Maybe you're losing money. Maybe you don't want to be with your institution anymore. Maybe, John, and this is unfortunately the common theme, maybe nobody calls you. Maybe nobody cares that you exist as a client, right? Maybe nobody takes the time to call you and say, hey, Mr. Smith, just checking in. How are you? Yeah. How's the kids' hockey games? These are questions we ask all the time at Delta. We know our clients intimately, and it's just the way it should be. And you get to know somebody enough, you have the pressure on your shoulders to make sure they're informed, that they themselves are becoming experts like us. And those are a myriad of reasons just to consider the registered account. There's all those great benefits that exist for your stocks, your mutual funds, and all those other things can be had by holding gold and silver in those same forms. So whether or not you have an RSP, TFSA, RIF, LIF, any of those things, you could try that through Delta, but instead you own physical bars of gold and physical bars of silver coins. There are a couple of options there, but yeah, John, that's just one way to get into the market. The other way is that we have direct home delivery. If you want to just dip your toe in, so to speak, go over to the website, take a look at our products, open up an account, pay for your product, and get it delivered home to you, right to your business, to your home, and then you can stack over time. And as you see dips in the market, that's when you can add more to it. You can also store with us, right? We have a vault. It's safe. It's insured. It is something that you can easily do, and that will mean that buying and selling happens on a phone call. It's very liquid. Or ultimately, in addition to those three options, you have the Delta Vault, which is bulk bullion, meaning if you want exposure to gold and silver, but you don't care about what bars you buy or what type of bars you buy or whether you own coins or bars or both, this account is for you, because what we do in this is we buy in bulk, and it keeps the overall cost of the bullion much lower. You'll get a much closer to spot price on both gold and silver. And the best thing about that account is if, when the time comes, you want to leverage a little, you can leverage up to 80% of the value of that metal in that account. So lots of great options for you. And it all starts with just making that phone call, John, getting to know us, using the website, building a relationship, and asking questions. Just a little bit of due diligence, a little bit of work to get you squared away. And John, as we come to an end, I know we're tight for time here at the end, but as I do every week, I want to remind people that it's still cold out there, that in this day and age right now, there are a lot of people out there suffering, and we don't see it. It's quiet, silent suffering. Please support your local food banks. It is very important that you do this. Go out, leave a bag at the grocery center, go and take a few bucks to the local food bank, and take care of your community, because it's very important to us here, and we do it all the time.
Good stuff. And that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. Reaching out finally one more time, 1-877-323-GOLD. That is how you do that. And online to deltaharbor.com. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960.